What it do? This is your brother Bishop of Bishop's Zone TV, and today's topic is a hot one. You guys see it. New York City started the East Coast versus West Coast beef, not Tupac. Now, why am I making this video? This is old news. I was a kid then. It's buffoonery and coonery because you have a bunch of black folks aligning themselves with particular regions to go against one another, which, I mean, we're all black. I promote unity and solidarity, by the way. So don't think I'm trying to disrespect any particular region. I don't care about that. And for the record, New York is my favorite city in America. And I know New York is still gonna be pissed off. Y'all still not gonna like this video. Y'all not gonna like what I got to say. But I just want to set the record straight because I saw a video that really struck a nerve with me. And I said, I got to talk about this because it's a lot of rewriting history at this point. I know people are getting older, so their memory might not be the best, but you got to be careful what you say, especially when you talk about someone who is no longer here to defend themselves. And I'm talking about Tupac. And the video that triggered me, that really struck a nerve with me, was on Vlad Culture Vulture TV, and it was with TK Kirkland. And if you don't know who TK Kirkland is, y'all can just Google him, check his background. I'm not disrespecting TK Kirkland, but I definitely disagree with his statement, which I don't even watch Vlad TV, but when I saw the title, I said, I gotta say something. And he basically compared Emmett Till's death to the East Coast versus West Coast beef. And in the sense of Tupac, quote unquote, lied to start a war is no different than the white woman accusing Emmett Till of whistling at her, which caused Emmett Till to die, to be murdered. That in itself is wild. That's a wild thing to say. And that's a false thing to say because Tupac did not start the East Coast versus West Coast beef. And I'm just going to provide some proof from other people's work to show and prove what really started the East Coast versus West Coast beef. Shouts out to Discretion TV because I will be using some of his content. I give him, look, I'm not taking credit for any of this. He provided the information. Also, I am not being biased with my takes. Yes, Tupac is my favorite rapper of all time, but Biggie is number 3. And behind Biggie is Nas. Matter of fact, majority of the rappers, majority of my favorite rappers ever of all time, most of them are probably from New York. That's how much I respect and adore New York. And plus, it's the birthplace of hip hop. So if we look back at this beef, this quote unquote beef, where did it start from? Where did it come from? Well, first and foremost, New York is the birthplace of hip hop. We know that for a fact. And when you look at hip hop, when it first started and where it was going in the 80s, we can see a shift change with the demographics and the landscape of hip hop when NWA came into the fold. And when NWA came into the picture, they became the biggest rap acts of all time during that period. Yes, they were. They were huge. It was a phenomenon that took over the whole country. It took over the whole country except for, you guessed it, New York. Because I can recall seeing interviews with Dr. Dre, and this is even into his solo career with the Chronic, saying, look, we was breaking records with all these radio stations in different places in America, but for some reason we couldn't really break into New York like that. We got a little love in New York, but we didn't get a lot of love compared to other places in the country. And to get love from New York is at least at that time, it was very much highly looked upon because New York was the birthplace of hip hop. So people looked at New York as kind of like the big brother when it comes to hip hop. So if we wasn't getting love and respect from New York, then we doing something wrong. And even NWA's first performance in New York didn't go too well because they got booed at the Apollo. They couldn't understand that. Like, these dudes with these jerry curls and these khaki suits with this West Coast accent, I don't like it. I can't get jiggy with this. But see, that attitude, that mindset is what started the war. It started the quote unquote war. It started the beef between the East Coast versus West Coast. Not Tupac, but New York's mentality at that time, which was basically, I don't listen to anything outside of the 5 boroughs. And to drive my point even further, we see this with the South Bronx rapper Tim Dog with his record Fuck Compton. Yes, that was the name of the record, Fuck Compton. Now, a lot of people don't talk about this particular diss record. They talk about Hit 'Em Up, but they don't say anything about Tim Dog's Fuck Compton. And that's very important to not leave this out of the discussion, because this was the first record to officially set off tension between East Coast versus West Coast. Before then, it was just a little tension, like, do they really rock with our music or not? We don't know. But Tim Dog pretty much showed you how he felt. And there were a lot of people from New York at that time that felt the same way that Tim Dog felt. That's why there wasn't a lot of pushback from New Yorkers, if any, when Tim Dog made that record. Which in hindsight, it should have been like, dude, they black too. Why are you disrespecting an entire city, an entire region? For what? And then, I mean, Tim Dog was going hard as shit. I mean, just look at these lyrics. I'm simplistic, imperialistic, idealistic, and I'm kicking in the ballistics. Having a gang war. We want to know what you're fighting for. Fighting over colors. All that gang shit's for dumb motherfuckers. But you go on thinking you're hard. Come to New York and we'll see who gets robbed. Take your jerry curl, take your black hats. Take your whack lyrics and your bullshit tracks. Now you're mad and you're thinking about stomping. Well, I'm from the South Bronx. Fuck Compton. I mean, come on. I mean, the dude talking about jerry curls, black hats. He's talking about those Raider hats. And fuck Compton, just straight up. Talking about they fighting over colors. That's stupid. I mean, he's really going at Compton in LA, West Coast. He's going at the whole shebang. And he made several different records disrespecting the West Coast in LA. And you know, the ironic thing is, something I discovered that really doesn't get talked about. Tim Dog almost got beat up. He could have lost his life when he did a show out in the Bay Area at one point in time. But somebody saved his life. Somebody helped him get out that jam. And you know who that was? Tupac. Yes. Proof. Here you go.
Big 'em up. Rest in power. Yo, I want to say real quick, you hit the nail in the head, man. It was definitely like I'm 43, so I was around in that time. I was, a teenager. I remember dudes running around with the Raiders hat in New York, and everybody's acting like they was on some new in LA shit. And he came out and he dropped that shit. You hit the nail on the head. He definitely broke the spell. But like you said,
he broke the spell, and he had a number one hit.
And he had a number one hit. I heard Mobb Deep say they performed LA in LA, and people out in Cali loved that. They got a lot of love out there. Did when he went to LA, you talking about having to travel light and being a little weary and about your surroundings. Did anything ever pop off with that? With anything out there, or everything was just
something popped off in San Francisco, but I wasn't with him at the time. Some DJs was playing that shit. Tim was there, and they threw the DJ off the balcony, and then they tried to rush Tim, but the only person came to Tim's aid was Tupac. Tupac pulled his shit out and kept them at the San Francisco niggas off of Tim. You know what I mean? Even back then,
the fuck out of here.
In fact, Tupac was thorough. You know what I mean? And kept the niggas off. Tupac was from here. You know what I mean? Don't get it fucked
Absolutely.
up. You know
Absolutely.
I mean? So Tupac
but he had roots in the Bay, so he was good on the Bay. So I could see that happening. Yeah, definitely.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So he was good out there.
Wow.
And he the one who kept the niggas off Tim, that they was gonna get his ass. You know I mean, that was before he called me to come rock his show for him.
Let me ask you something.
And here's the funny thing about Tupac throughout his career, leading up until after he was released from prison, is that Tupac seemed to always position himself as the bridge between East Coast and West Coast. He's originally from New York. Then he moved around from Baltimore and then eventually the Bay Area. But he always showed love to New York. He was in Naughty by Nature's videos alongside with Eazy-E. He was friends with Tretch. He was friends with Queen Latifah. Also while representing the West Coast. You know, he started Thug Life when he was bridging West Coast, a Cali artist with New York artists. You know, he had a song on his record, on his album, Me Against the World, titled Love for the Old School, Nothing But the Old School, where he was shouting out all these New York rappers from back in the day, where he was shouting out things that only New Yorkers could get. Because again, he's originally from New York. So how did he become this starter of wars between the East Coast versus West Coast? And basically what I think it is, what it boils down to is some New Yorkers, old school New Yorkers, still feel a certain way about Pac because they hold Pac responsible for Biggie's death. And since Pac is no longer here, and Biggie's no longer here, and neither one can speak for themselves, they still hold on to that. And so they have to paint him as this guy who was just wild and reckless and started the whole beef. But we can see that's not true. We can see in 1995, at the peak of the East Coast versus West Coast tension, where it started, where it not started, but where it really went into overdrive. Source Awards 1995 was filmed in New York. And there was tension between Death Row specifically and Bad Boy. And later that became New York versus anybody who's not from New York. So people were catching strays all throughout that night, including Outkast, a Southern group. Yes, Outkast got booed. It's what led to Andre 3000 famously saying,
"But it's like this though. I'm tired of folks, you know what I'm saying? The closed-minded folks, you know what I'm saying? It's like we got a demo tape and don't nobody want to hear it, but it's like this, the South got something to say. That's all I got to say."
So again, how did Tupac become the poster child for the East Coast versus West Coast beef? Tupac was locked up during the Source Awards. Remember that? He was locked up. Suge Knight said, hey.
First of all, I'd like to thank God. Second of all, I'd like to thank my whole entire Death Row family on both sides, you know what I'm saying? I'd like to tell Tupac to keep his guards up. We ride with him. And one other thing I'd like to say, any artist out there want to be an artist and want to stay a star, and don't want to have to worry about the executive producer trying to be all in the videos, all on the record, dancing. Come to Death Row.
I don't understand it. I don't get it. And I gotta say something about it because it's revisionist history. And the man is no longer here to defend himself. So the conclusion of it all is this. A lot of people had their hands in the East Coast versus West Coast beef. Publications like Vibe, they added fuel to the fire. When they put East versus West on that cover with Biggie and Puffy on it, that was problematic. They added fuel to the fire. I like what Tretch said. What Tretch said, you know, niggas from the hood don't be reading past the headlines. They don't read nothing but the covers. They ain't got time to be reading articles. You know, it was definitely a lot of radio stations at the time that was feeding into this whole East Coast versus West Coast beef. And I'm not saying Tupac was innocent, but let's not pretend that Biggie was innocent as well. I mean, Biggie did get on a radio station in New York and instigate a shooting at the Dog Pound of Snoop Dogg's single New York, New York video set.
I don't think it's because you're saying West Side. I think because
they think they own me.
Nah, not at all. I think it's because, Dog Pound video came out, New York, New York, and I'm not saying you was in the video. I know you wasn't in the video.
I wasn't in it. I didn't write it. I didn't produce the beat.
All right, so let's take that.
I was in jail. The album was done while I was in jail. That's separate.
It just, you know what it is? It's New York's visualizing your camp, which to them is Death Row, which is Dog Pound, which is Snoop, and which is that whole thing. And it was all one time. The New York, New York video came out. Brothers was stepping on cars in New York, stepping on, on New York like they owned it. Boom, you come out, next video, West.
What about?
Brothers was stepping on cars in New York, stepping on, on New York like they owned it. Boom, you come out, next video, West.
What about the video? Yes, to me, it is the Best Coast, and everybody in New York feel like that too. That's why they come out here and party, man. Why is everybody acting like? I didn't say for me to say Cali is the West Coast. I never said New York ain't shit. I never said New York is the worst coast. I just said where I'm at, where I'm from, is the best coast. Why is that offending people?
Okay.
Let me get the dynamics to that New York, New York record. When the New York, New York record was first done, it was produced by DJ Pooh. It was actually a Biggie Smalls St. Ives commercial, and you can run the Google on that.
I know you're thinking, well, goddamn, what he drinking? The crooked leather. No other beer feel better. I used to be a hustler. Now I'm a 22 brew guzzler. Other beers I'm not loving you. Forget the great taste that's left filling. I'd rather have some eyes and some dimes in the crib chilling, or in the six relaxing. Honey's in the back, cracking six packs in my back. Big Papa, you.
That was a Biggie Smalls beat for a St. Ives commercial. That DJ Pooh flew him out to do a commercial because St. Ives was the people that was paying rappers back then, and we fucked with Biggie and we liked Biggie. So Pooh, my right-hand man, gave Biggie the beat. So when I heard the beat and heard Biggie on it, I told Pooh, let me get that beat. He was like, all right, cool. Biggie ain't using it for his album. It was just for the commercial. I take the beat, put the hook on it, Corrupt put lyrics on it. We fly to New York probably about a month later. I go see Russell Simmons. We're in the back of a limousine. And I play the record for Russell. And Russell like, this motherfucking record is a hit. I'm like, yeah, nigga, we love Grandmaster Flash. And that's where I got it from. The hook is from Grandmaster Flash. So I'm like, I love them niggas, man. You know what I'm saying? Back to me showing love again. So I'm like, all right, cool. We're going to shoot the video in New York, nigga. We're going to bring lowriders and everything out here. Russell was like, that'd be a dope idea. I help you get some of the rappers. Cool. So we finally scheduled it to come back out there to shoot the video. Get to New York. Go to Hot 97. Funkmaster Flex is on the air. We try to get up to go see him. We get froze. They don't let us up. We ain't tripping. We like, maybe he, interviewing him. Maybe we should schedule it or whatnot, but we don't get up. So we like, cool. We go back to the video shoot. We shooting in Red Hook, Brooklyn. Now, we turn on Hot 97. We hear Biggie Smalls on the radio. Red Hook, Brooklyn. Stand up. Tupac and the Dog Pound shooting a video in Brooklyn right now. I felt like I had a great relationship with Biggie, and I felt like we were showing love by doing the video. First scene we shot when we first got there was at Times Square. We had the lowriders at Times Square. A couple of New York rappers showed up. We was out there showing love, shooting the video in New York, letting niggas know. We didn't have social media back then, so we couldn't go on Instagram and be like, hey, my niggas, show up. The only word of mouth was through the radio station. So if we can't get to the radio, we can't get to the people. But remember what I just told you. Biggie gets on the radio after we can't get on the radio and says what he says. We go to Red Hook and we shooting. One of my homies from Naughty by Nature tell me, hey dog, I wouldn't shoot the video over there. I would, bounce. I'm like, nah, we good. So now my daddy's a Vietnam vet. My daddy come back in the trailer. Man, a motherfucker, he's talking crazy, but we like, man, this nigga, my daddy tripping. But my daddy really on some other shit because he a Vietnam vet, he peeping game. We ain't tripping. My daddy walk out the trailer, go to the store. 5 minutes later, pew, pew, pew. I didn't take it as if he called the shot. I took it as if we was out of bounds and some people in that neighborhood just didn't feel us and was trying to, give us a warning to get up out of there. So at that time, remember what my mind was. I'm on peace, but I'm still gangster. So After we get out of that and get back to LA, the word is Cuz got us popped at, but we never go public. And that's why y'all never heard about it.
Coming up, Snoop Dogg recounts a time that the rap game nearly ended his life. But it hasn't always been easy. He's had to keep his composure in some of the most dangerous situations in the history of rap, including a major threat from Notorious B.I.G. that could have cost him his life. And now I get Snoop to open up on how things between him and Biggie almost got very ugly, and how his ability to keep things in control has allowed him to handle threatening situations throughout his life. This is the story of a survivor who's kept the peace long enough to become an American legend.
Angie, I think just doing me. I've never done nothing but me.
I know.
And it works. I'm a natural loving person, so I love people. So I can get down with the best of them. You know what I'm saying? I don't really have too many enemies or too many people that I dislike.
Which is interesting because didn't they shoot at you at the Dog Pound video in New York?
Biggie called the shot.
Allegedly.
No, he did.
Allegedly.
He did.
Okay.
I heard it with my own 2 ears. I got a great memory. My is splendid.
Allegedly.
He did. We went to go see Funkmaster Flex early that day, and he shined on us. We was going up to the radio station to do this. Yo, New York, DPG, we here shooting a video. We need all you New York rappers to come with us, because we love y'all. We shooting a video at Times Square. We shooting at Red Hook. Come get down with us. That's what we was coming to do. But Funkmaster Flex, he wouldn't let us in.
So then you guys head to the video shoot, and Biggie calls the station and went on the air.
Right. He said it's a Tupac Dog Pound video in Red Hook, Brooklyn. Brooklyn, stand up. Stand up. What that mean? This gangster that nobody even would repeat. See, what he thought Tupac was at the video.
And this is at the height of the beef.
You mother, right.
Got it.
But he wasn't. So somebody gets shot at the video.
That was Biggie. But New Yorkers don't talk about that. They don't talk about that aspect, or they try to dismiss that. It's like, I didn't think he said that. Allegedly, we heard Angie Martinez in her interview with Tupac, pressing Tupac about the East Coast versus West Coast. Like New York didn't have no involvement with that. Like New York was just sitting by and they just, y'all dissing us? No. The feelings were there all along. And I understand it to an extent. This is a different time. Remember that. This is a different time in hip hop. New Yorkers started hip hop. And the West Coast, at least I would say from 88 to 92, was taking over hip hop. Nobody else could have it at that time but the West Coast. And I understand New Yorkers feel some kind of way. So New York's whole thing around this time was we got to take it back. We got to take it back from the West Coast. No disrespect, but this is the birthplace of hip hop. And we can see it in Puffy's presentation of Biggie going platinum with his debut album.
The video.
Have a seat, B.I.G. Let me do this presentation. Can everybody here make some noise for B.I.G. for bringing it back to the East? Bringing it back to the East. Big shout to Method Man, the Wu-Tang Clan, J. Rue the Damager, Guru, Premier, all the producers on the album. We'd like to thank y'all, Arista Records, BMG, all the DJs that supported it, Flip Squad, SNS, Ron G, Kid Capri. You know what I'm saying? All the niggas that ain't here, all the niggas locked down. You know what I'm saying? One more chance went platinum. This is a nigga from the East Coast. He ain't from the West Coast, man. This is a nigga from the East Coast. Give it up for this nigga right here, straight from Brooklyn.
So we can see right there, New Yorkers felt some kind of way. They wanted hip hop back in New York. It's cool that you had it, but y'all tainting it up a little bit, and it needs to come back to its rightful place. These things help fuel the fire for East Coast versus West Coast situation. That's what it was. Now I think we can all look back and say that was silly, didn't need to happen, and that partially could be the reason why Pac and Big are not here anymore. That's not the sole reason why, but that could partially be the reason. New Yorkers, I hope you're not mad. I hope you can at least look at yourself in the mirror and say, yeah, We did kind of start that shit, or at least our forefathers kind of started that shit. Certain individuals. I'm not saying it's the entirety of New York, because there were New York people that embraced West Coast acts. I mean, Public Enemy went out their way to embrace everybody. They even embraced Luke and Too Loud Crew at one point in time. So it's not like it was the entirety of New York or LA or East Coast versus West Coast. It was certain individuals that had a problem, but let's stop pretending that Tupac was the one that created the East Coast versus West Coast situation. With that said, don't forget to like and subscribe. And until next time, holla.